James asks, what do you think about James White's arguments for the Reformed understanding of the assurance of salvation? This seems to be the greatest weakness of Catholicism. I don't think so at all, because I think that a person can have moral certainty that they are in a state of grace. You don't have to have absolute certainty, and nobody has absolute certainty about the vast majority of things, let alone assurance of salvation. So I think that a Catholic can have moral certitude, that they are in a state of grace. They're not conscious of any grave sins on their soul. I mean, if you killed somebody, if you have been committing certain, very serious grave sins, and you have a pretty good idea if you had full consent of will and knowledge. So I think, again, we can have a moral certitude, and that is a sufficient assurance. So I don't really think that the matter of assurance is that big of an issue for Catholicism. I actually think that a Catholic could have just as much assurance as, let's say, a Protestant when it comes to matters of salvation and assurance of their salvation. In fact, maybe even more, because they actually have a physical and tangible connection with something that can be traced back to Christ through apostolic succession, whereas Protestants generally lack that, and it has to be this emotional or this speculative thing, and there's really no actual connection that can bring you back to the apostles tangibly. Again, Catholics have the sacraments, so there's something tangible there. So if anything, I think Catholics could have more assurance, and I think the same by extension applies to Eastern Orthodoxy. Eric, do you want to respond to that if you have any comments, and then you, William?
I only have one comment. If anybody wants to see a theological school that provides the least amount of assurance, I have to say it's none other than Calvin's Geneva. If you read about Calvin's Geneva and the conditions that people labored under his theology, I myself, coming from a Calvinistic background, had very little assurance while as a Calvinist. So read the history of Calvin's Geneva. Okay,
William, did you want to touch on that?
Definitely, I agree with you, Eric. Coming from a Reformed background myself, before I became Catholic, I would tell the audience, be careful for that. The kind of overstatement of, oh man, now you swam the Tiber River and now you don't have that assurance anymore. I can tell you one thing, it is really overstating it, because when I was Reformed, I didn't walk around really feeling, hey guys, you know what? I'm, fully saved. I've got this eternal assurance. I can guarantee you, it really isn't that rosy red as they try to paint it to be. And I think there's a ton of holes that you can poke to that. And Michael gave a great point. In Catholicism, you have the pedigree of the ancient faith right behind you. You don't have that in Reform. I would argue in Reformed churches, you're lacking a lot of it. Sure, you have Trinitarian theology and a whole lot of other really, really good stuff. I wouldn't argue otherwise. I'm not arguing that they're not Christian per se, but they're lacking a whole lot in terms of the ancient pedigree.
Yeah, no, I don't see how they would have more assurance.